So imagine spending 50 years mastering ancient energy healing,
Okay.
like achieving these really profound states of meditation and actually reversing terminal illnesses.
Right, which is a massive claim.
Massive. But then imagine taking all that experience, going on YouTube, and basically begging your audience to please, go take modern FDA-approved pharmaceuticals.
It's completely wild.
It really is. It completely shatters that invisible wall we've built between modern medical science and alternative wellness.
And welcome, everyone, to today's deep dive. We're looking at a super compelling set of materials from Osman today.
Yeah, widely known online as the Blind Muslim Yogi.
Exactly. And right off the bat, we should probably set the stage for who he is, right? Because his background informs everything we're going to talk about today.
It really does. It's a massive departure from the usual digital wellness narrative you see.
Right.
Because you typically see online practitioners positioning themselves as, like, the hidden secret, the ultimate alternative to this broken, toxic medical system. Yeah, the whole us versus them thing.
Exactly. But Osman flips that script entirely. What we're really exploring here is the architecture of trust and health. Like, how do we synthesize the undeniable value of ancient practices that have survived for, 1,500 years?
Yeah, at least.
Right. How do we synthesize that with the rigorous, heavily regulated scrutiny of a modern medical board?
Okay, let's unpack this, because I am fascinated by this guy. First of all, the name Blind Muslim Yogi. He actually has been permanently blind since May 2023.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when you hear him in his videos or on his podcast, which you can find on Spotify and Apple by searching his name, he describes things visually, but he's actually pulling from his memory.
That's incredible, just from what he saw before losing his sight.
Exactly. It adds this intense layer of visualization to his work. And he's a master-level bioenergy healer. He specializes in critical care, recovery, terminal illnesses, all of it.
And he's been practicing for 50 years.
50 years. He actually attained his first samadhi experience by the age of 19. Which is,
that's incredibly rare. We should probably ground that term for a second because samadhi gets thrown around a lot.
yeah, please do. People use it as this, like, vague, mystical buzzword.
Right, exactly. But in a biological and psychological sense, reaching samadhi refers to this state of profound autonomic nervous system regulation.
Okay.
It's a hyper-focused state where the boundary between the self and the external environment essentially just dissolves.
Wow.
Biologically, it induces this massive parasympathetic response, so it lowers cortisol, drops your heart rate, and shifts the brain into deep theta or delta wave states.
But you remain totally conscious, right?
Yes. Completely conscious. Achieving that at 19 requires an obsessive level of neurological discipline.
And he's maintained that discipline. He talks about dedicating up to 18 hours a day to his practice during certain stages of his life.
18 hours, that's a full-time job and then some.
Literally. And the cool thing is, he actually tries to simplify this for modern people. He has a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program you can download on his website, yogawellness786.com.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and just a quick note for anyone checking it out, don't look for the $5 anxiety fix he used to have that's not available anymore, but the 5-minute program is entirely free.
Nice. So he's taking this incredibly intense, high-level discipline and making it accessible.
Exactly. He's very focused on what he calls a scientific approach, not some mystical, unreachable thing. He explicitly wants to use the term scientific because he's dealing with quantum and entanglement principles, telepathic healing, real, measurable bioenergy manipulation.
Right.
So our mission today is to unpack his surprisingly logical perspective, because here we have an alternative health master aggressively championing mainstream medical intervention.
Over natural therapies even.
Yeah.
When dealing with serious illnesses,
Yes. And he starts with this super provocative analogy. He says comparing an energy healer or a natural therapist to a board-certified medical doctor is like comparing a bicycle to a Ferrari.
Which is such a brilliant way to frame it. He backs that analogy up by dissecting the actual mechanical reality of what it takes to build that Ferrari.
Yeah, he really goes into the weeds on the credentials.
He does. He points out that just to be considered for medical school, a candidate needs elite academic performance, like at least a 3.92 GPA just to apply.
Just to apply.
Right. And that GPA isn't just about proving you can memorize a textbook. It functions as this extreme stress test.
Oh, that's a good point.
It proves that a human being can process a crushing volume of complex information under relentless pressure without breaking down.
Yeah, And even with those grades, there's, what, a 1% acceptance rate into these programs?
Exactly, 1%. And getting in is just the starting line.
Oh, for sure. Then you're looking at over a decade of intensive study, right?
Yeah, clinical research, grueling internships, all before a doctor is legally allowed to independently put their hands on a patient and treat them.
And they are continually tested and peer-reviewed the whole time.
Exactly. They are bound by a system of rigorous oversight.
Oh, wait, let me push back on this for a second, because when I heard the Ferrari analogy, my first thought was, what if I just need to travel down my driveway to get the mail?
Right.
Like, I don't need a Ferrari for that. Isn't the bicycle sometimes exactly what you need? Is it possible Osman is kind of selling his own profound profession short by calling it a bicycle?
Well, what's fascinating here is that he isn't selling it short at all. For the driveway, you absolutely take the bicycle.
Okay, yeah.
If we're talking about daily maintenance, stress relief, mitigating a cortisol spike from a bad day at work, or just general metabolic well-being,
Well,
the bicycle is perfect.
that makes sense.
In fact, a Ferrari would be total overkill. Trying to drive a high-performance machine at 2 miles an hour down a driveway might actually cause damage.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. You don't need surgery for a bad day at the office.
Exactly. But Osman's point is entirely about the context of the environment. When your biology enters a life-or-death crisis, like a severe acute illness, you aren't on the driveway anymore.
Right, you've been dropped onto a Formula One racetrack.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You cannot take a bicycle onto a Formula One racetrack and expect to survive the first turn. You need the heavily vetted, high-performance machinery of modern science.
I love that distinction between acute crisis management and chronic daily maintenance. And Osman contrasts the medical path with his own field of energy healing so honestly.
He really does. He's brutally honest about the barrier to entry in alternative wellness.
Yeah, he points out that from a credentialing standpoint, basically anyone can become an energy healer.
Right. There's virtually zero intellectual competition to get into a holistic healing class.
None. You can just fly to a retreat somewhere, take a weekend course in, like crystal healing or clairvoyance, and the graduation rates are hovering around 99%.
And you really have to consider the mechanism behind those graduation rates. In a medical environment, if you miscalculate a dosage on a pharmacology exam, the simulated patient dies.
Wow. Yeah.
And you fail.
Yeah.
There is an objective life or death failure condition. But in many alternative healing courses, the assessment is completely subjective.
Right. It requires passion and empathy, sure, but it does not require a decade of elite, hyper-competitive academic discipline to pass.
Exactly. Osman is establishing a strict hierarchy of crisis management here.
Which is so refreshing.
It is, because alternative medicine often markets itself as a total replacement for conventional care. But Osman is drawing a hard, non-negotiable line.
Which naturally leads to the next big question. If we need the Ferrari for the acute crisis, how do we find the right one? Because Osman has these incredibly strict geographical rules about this.
Oh, this part is so crucial.
It is. I mean, think about it. How many times have you paused a podcast because a brilliant guest described a symptom perfectly, and suddenly you're bypassing your local clinic entirely?
Oh, all the time. People open a new tab and order a stack of obscure supplements right then and there.
Exactly. Osman explicitly warns against this behavior. He says, do not blindly follow medical advice from the internet, even if the person speaking is a literal licensed Harvard professor.
And the danger there lies in the difference between statistical averages and individual baselines. Right.
A Harvard professor speaking to an audience of 3 million people has to speak to the middle of the bell curve. They are offering generalized physiological mechanics.
But you, as an individual, might sit on the extreme edge of that curve.
Precisely. You might have an undetected thyroid issue or a genetic predisposition to a specific enzyme deficiency. Information without context is genuinely dangerous.
So the critical caveat for Osman is that your medical professional must be accredited, licensed, and most importantly, practicing in your specific locality.
Yes, locality is everything to him.
But why does the geography matter so much? I mean, if I can do a telehealth call with a world-renowned specialist in another country, shouldn't their expertise override the local doctor sitting 3 miles from my house?
You'd think so, but a specialist on a screen cannot order a blood draw in real time. They can't immediately examine your physical presentation or correlate it with the environmental realities of your zip code.
Right. Medicine isn't just a transactional moment where you get a one-time prescription and the job is done. Exactly. It is a continuous, dynamic feedback loop. Your local doctor pulls your specific lab reports. They track your personal medical history over years, observing your actual biological baseline.
And if they prescribe a protocol, they need to actually observe your body's response and adjust it.
Right. And if something goes wrong, the physical proximity becomes your safety net.
Yeah, Osman makes a great point about this. He says if a medication causes a dangerous contraindication, say an unexpected interaction between two drugs that drops your blood pressure dangerously low, you can't go to the YouTube comment section of that Harvard professor's video for an emergency intervention.
No, you definitely cannot.
You need to physically walk into a clinic where the staff has your chart pulled up before you even sit down.
And that's also why he advises so strongly against doctor shopping.
Oh yeah, the instant gratification thing.
Right. In our age of immediate gratification, the second a patient doesn't hear the diagnosis they want, or the second a treatment is uncomfortable, the instinct is to just jump to another professional.
But Osman advocates for sticking to one doctor you trust to build that comprehensive history.
Because bouncing between 5 different practitioners fragments your medical data. It makes it impossible for anyone to see the full picture of your health.
But of course, sticking with that local doctor through a crisis almost inevitably leads to the prescription pad.
Yes, it does.
And we really have to address the massive elephant in the room here. This is the exact moment where the trust architecture usually fractures for people.
Yep, the pharmaceutical debate.
Exactly. So many people flee the traditional medical system and run toward alternative healing specifically because of the fear of pharmaceutical side effects.
It is arguably the greatest modern anxiety regarding health. We live in an era where the side effects of a drug are often perceived as worse than the initial symptom.
And Osman doesn't dismiss this fear, which I appreciate. He openly acknowledges the heavy, often terrifying realities of a collateral damage that medicine can cause to the body.
Right, he's not blind to it.
But he vehemently defends the process. He points out that these drugs go through the FDA. They're authorized only after being subjected to multiple phases of trials, double-blind placebo testing, and just brutal scrutiny by elite specialists and peers.
But here's the question people always ask. If he believes the body is the ultimate champion that can heal itself, why advocate for dumping harsh synthetic chemicals into the system at all?
Yeah, doesn't that completely contradict the holistic approach of an energy healer?
Well, it only contradicts it if you misunderstand the fundamental purpose of the medication. And this is where Osman's central thesis becomes totally paradigm shifting.
Okay, break that down for us.
He states very clearly that pharmaceuticals are not meant to give you perfect health.
Right, really?
Really, we have been psychologically conditioned by marketing to expect a pill to provide optimal wellness. We want the pill to make us feel vibrant, perfectly balanced, and bursting with energy.
Right, like those commercials where everyone is running through a field of flowers.
Exactly. And when it doesn't do that, when the chemotherapy causes severe nausea or the beta blockers make us lethargic, we feel betrayed by the science.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that disappointment is what fuels the retreat to alternative therapies.
I see. So it's fundamentally an expectation issue.
Yeah.
Let's put it in the context of, like, a house fire.
Okay.
Pharmaceuticals are the chemical fire extinguisher. When your kitchen is actively burning down, you don't stand there complaining that the chemical foam is going to ruin your expensive hardwood floors.
No, you definitely don't.
You use the foam to put out the fire. Because if you don't, the entire structure burns to the ground.
Right.
And then once the fire is successfully extinguished, then you assess the damage, clean the foam off the floor, and figure out how to rebuild the kitchen.
That is the perfect mechanism to describe his philosophy. Medication is an intervention designed to arrest a critical crisis. It is an emergency brake. It is not the engine of health.
That's a great phrase, the emergency brake.
Right. The medicine stops the biological crisis. It starves the tumor, it destroys the aggressive bacterial infection, it forces the blood vessels to dilate during a cardiac event. But the medicine does not rebuild your vitality.
Which throws responsibility right back onto the patient.
Yes, it does.
The doctor and the drug save your life, but you have to actually heal yourself. You have to have the discipline to follow the post-crisis protocols, do the agonizing physical therapy, completely overhaul your lifestyle, basically rebuild the damaged tissue.
And that transition from surviving the crisis to rebuilding the system is exactly where Osman's own specialty fits into the picture.
Right, let's get into that. Because if the doctor puts out the fire, what does the energy healer actually do?
We need to look at what the bicycle actually achieves once you've survived the Ferrari ride.
Let's get into the mechanics of his practice. He practices Qigong energy healing, right?
Yeah, which is a 1,500-year-old art form originating from the Shaolin Temple in Beijing.
And he reached the master healer level back in 2019. He reports a documented incredibly high success rate, around 90%.
Which sounds unbelievable to most people.
It does. But he actually says this 90% success rate is completely normal.
Right.
Like, it's not extraordinary if people learn to naturally boost their immunity through these specific energy protocols.
Right. And he's successfully helped reverse severe conditions, including terminal illnesses like cancer.
Yeah, he specifically mentions that cancer is often a result of modern lifestyles that deplete our natural energies, and his protocols replenish that. But he attaches a massive non-negotiable caveat to these success stories.
Yes. And we must explore how he claims this works before we look at that caveat. When he talks about manipulating bioenergy or utilizing quantum and entanglement principles, it can sound esoteric.
Sure, very woo-woo.
Exactly. But viewed through the lens of bioelectromagnetics and autonomic regulation, the goal of Qigong is to induce a state of such profound physiological calm and resonance that the body's immune system is no longer suppressed by chronic stress hormones.
I see.
By systematically regulating the breath and the nervous system, the body can redirect massive amounts of metabolic energy away from fight or flight and toward cellular repair and immune defense.
So that is the natural immunity boost he refers to.
Yes, exactly.
But here's the ethical cornerstone of his entire practice, and I love this. Every single one of those successful cancer reversals happened while the patient was already under heavy medical supervision.
Yes, that is so important.
He absolutely refuses to accept patients who want to abandon their medical treatments in favor of his healing. He will literally turn you away if you walk out on your oncologist.
He operates strictly as a complementary addition. He essentially acts as the last resort. He intervenes when doctors have done absolutely all they can, when the physical decline is rapid, and when all known medical interventions have plateaued.
But even in that dire state, the patient cannot stop the medical treatment.
Right. From a systems thinking perspective, his work acts as a biological catalyst.
Okay, a catalyst.
Yeah, the medicine is attacking the disease, and his energy work is attempting to radically optimize the patient's biological environment to withstand that attack and repair the collateral damage.
It's just incredibly rare to encounter a master practitioner in the wellness space who refuses to take the credit.
It really is. Ego is a huge problem in that space.
Oh, huge. But he states explicitly that he is not the champion, and neither is medical science. The real champion is the patient's own body.
Right. He says his healing just provides that slight push needed for the body to remember how to heal itself.
By positioning himself as a biological support beam rather than the primary savior, he protects deeply vulnerable people.
Absolutely. Because when a patient is desperately ill, their psychological state is so fragile, they are highly susceptible to false hope.
Yeah, they want a magic bullet. They want a secret cure that doesn't involve the agony of chemotherapy or the trauma of surgery.
Exactly. And by flatly refusing to be that false magic bullet, he ensures his patients do not abandon life-saving science out of fear.
And that ethical rigor doesn't just stop at energy healing. He carries this exact same standard over into the third pillar of the healing triad he discusses, which is dietary discipline and nutrition.
Oh, this is a big one.
Massive. So you have the doctor handling the acute crisis, the energy healing providing the slight biological push, but then there's the question of what fuel you're actually putting into the engine.
And diet is arguably the most chaotic and misinformation-dense sector of the modern wellness space right now.
Without a doubt.
Osman strongly warns against the prevailing trend of creating your own DIY diet plans or constantly jumping from one trendy internet diet to another based on, what an influencer ate in a vlog.
Which feels almost radical to say out loud today.
Right.
I mean, we live in the era of TikTok diets, 30-day juice cleanses sold via Instagram ads, and influencers basically acting as unlicensed nutritionists.
Yeah, everyone's an expert online.
Telling people they need actual professional medical supervision just to change what they eat goes against the entire current culture of self-optimization.
But he treats dietary intervention with the exact same gravity as pharmaceutical medication. Structurally, he advocates for using qualified dietitians.
And we aren't talking about a self-appointed nutrition coach here, right?
No, not at all. A clinical dietitian studies for 4 to 6 years, often achieving a master's level of education in biochemistry and metabolic science.
Wow.
And Osman insists they must work in direct conjunction with your local doctor.
But what exactly does the dietitian do that the influencer doesn't? Like, why is the DIY approach so dangerous?
Well, because the metabolism is a highly complex, interconnected system.
Right.
A DIY internet diet might prompt you to cut out an entire macronutrient group to drop water weight quickly, right?
Yeah, like cutting all carbs.
Exactly. But what the influencer doesn't know is your specific thyroid function, your lipid panels, or your hormonal baseline.
Ah,
A
yeah.
severe calorie restriction or a massive macronutrient shift can cause severe metabolic adaptation. It can cause hormonal rebound or exacerbate underlying insulin resistance.
Which the influencer would have no idea about.
Yeah, right. The local doctor oversees the clinical picture, the lab results, and the medication contraindications, and the dietitian tailors the nutritional input to that exact, individualized clinical reality.
That makes total sense. And Osman makes a really specific, powerful point about obesity in this context.
Yes, he does.
He identifies obesity not merely as a condition or a consequence of lifestyle choices, but explicitly as an illness.
Which is a very important distinction.
It is. And because it is an illness, it absolutely requires professional medical and dietary supervision to treat safely.
That framing is vital. By classifying obesity firmly as a clinical illness, Osman is systematically stripping away the moral failing or personal shame that society constantly attaches to it.
Yeah, because when society views obesity as just a lack of willpower, the prescribed solution is always a DIY bicycle approach.
Exactly. Just try harder, buy this internet workout plan, eat less.
But if it's an illness, it requires the Ferrari.
Precisely. A clinical metabolic illness requires professional intervention. You need a medical team that understands your metabolic baseline and can safely guide the system back to homeostasis without causing secondary damage.
It all comes back to a deep, profound respect for the science and an understanding of the severity of what the human body actually endures.
It really does.
And to truly appreciate why Osman has such deep reverence for medical science, we have to look at the anatomy of his own calling, because there is a profound irony in how he arrived at this philosophy.
Yeah, he didn't just observe the medical field from a distance.
No, he was actually inside the machine.
His personal backstory provides the foundation for his entire worldview. He didn't choose energy healing because he couldn't make it in the traditional academic world.
Right.
Osman was actually admitted to a medical university in South Africa. He did the rigorous academic work. He secured the elite grades required. He was physically on the path to becoming the Ferrari.
And he outlines exactly what that path would have demanded of him. 13 to 14 years of his life.
Yeah, 6 years of basic medical study, 2 years of grueling internships, and another 6 years of specializing.
He stared down the barrel of that exact training, and then he walked away. He dropped out.
But what fascinates me is the reason he dropped out.
Yeah, it wasn't the academic pressure. He walked away because he realized he absolutely hated dealing with trauma, illness, and blood on a visceral, hands-on level.
He encountered the stark, unromantic reality of human biology. And the specific breaking point he shares is intensely visceral.
Oh, it really is.
He describes being in his medical coursework and having to face the dissection class. His assignment was to dissect a stiff, frozen rat.
He actually skipped the first few dissection classes entirely because the thought of it repulsed him so much.
Right.
But eventually, the reality of the academic system caught up with him, and he was forced to face it to secure his credits for the examination. And physically touching that frozen, stiff rat was his absolute breaking point. It pushed him out of the medical field entirely.
We really need to unpack what that frozen rat represents in the broader context of health and wellness.
Let's do it.
The modern internet wellness industry heavily sanitizes the human body. Health is portrayed as glowing skin, perfectly curated green juices, and serene meditation spaces.
Right, it's very aesthetic.
Exactly. But true medical science is gritty. It is dealing with decay, disease, bodily fluids, trauma, and the cold, hard reality of cellular death.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Osman realized in that dissection room that he did not have the psychological constitution to spend the rest of his life doing hospital rounds, managing trauma, and dealing with cadavers.
And you know what? Knowing your own limitations is an absolute superpower.
It is.
He didn't let ego force him down a path of misery just to secure a prestigious title. He recognized that he could not endure the psychological toll of being a doctor, so he pivoted to his true passion.
And he spent the next 4.5 decades teaching yoga and meditation, reaching thousands of students across more than 100 countries.
And that profound self-awareness is exactly why his advocacy for medical science carries the ultimate credibility.
Yes, Osman's reverence for doctors stems directly from his own inability to endure what they endure.
He knows the immense psychological, emotional, and intellectual burden the medical path demands because he felt the heat of that forge and he stepped out of the fire.
Exactly. He took a different path to healing, dedicating his life to simplifying complex ancient protocols so people could achieve results easily.
Yeah, encouraging a truly scientific approach to these ancient practices to benefit society's health, peace, and relationships. And he offers so much of this for free.
Right. He does. Through his YouTube channel and his site, yogawellness786.com. He does have a Patreon for one-on-one consultations and premium energy healing services, but all the relevant information is free.
Specifically to help people replenish their lost natural energy. But he never lost his respect for the path he left behind. He isn't an outsider criticizing medicine from a place of ignorance.
No, he is an ally who understands the heavy burden doctors carry. That is exactly why he demands his patients respect their doctors, too.
It completely reframes the narrative. We're so used to the us versus them mentality, holistic versus allopathic, nature versus chemicals.
Right, but Osman dissolves that conflict entirely. He replaces it with a unified, hierarchical system of healing based on the severity of the crisis and the specific tools required at each stage.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We've explored how a 1,500-year-old Shaolin healing art can beautifully and ethically coexist with modern, FDA-approved pharmaceuticals.
Yes, we have.
We learned to respect the Ferrari of medical science for acute crisis management, the absolute necessity of having local, licensed supervision who knows your specific biological history.
And we've redefined the role of the bicycle as a vital complement when the medical road gets narrow, and you need that slight, energetic push to rebuild.
It's not about choosing sides. It's about knowing which tool to use at which time. But as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with something to really chew on.
Yeah. Throughout this deep dive, we've talked almost exclusively about external interventions.
Right.
We've debated the necessity of the surgeon's scalpel, the rigorous intervention of the pharmaceutical pill, and even the ancient energy healer's touch. But Osman insists, at the end of the day, that the real champion of health is you.
Which makes you wonder, if a master healer with 50 years of experience who has reached the state of samadhi and spent decades manipulating biological energy to help save lives, views his own profound abilities as merely a crutch for your biology.
What untapped miraculous mechanisms are lying dormant inside your own cells right now, just waiting for you to create the right environment for them to wake up?